Good morning, everyone. It is Monday morning, December 20th, Christmas week, Kristen Boyce. Can you believe it?
I really cannot. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. It doesn't feel like it.
No, well, I was actually talking. Welcome, everyone, to Mental Health Monday, by the way. I'm Chris Jensen. I'm joined by my good friend, somebody who's just graciously, almost for the 2 years now, given her time to this conversation. Kristen Boyce, owner of Pathways of Healing. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. I
Yes,
look forward to this every single time we're doing a Mental Health Monday. Truly.
I do
I
too.
love it. I look forward to it and I like our conversations in the community. I just feel my heart just is bursting.
Yeah, I
I know
love it,
that
and
sounds
it's
crazy.
it's been great. I have so many people that stop me now and ask about Mental Health Monday. We have a new employee from several weeks ago who loves to tune in as well, and my mom always tune. I mean, I hear it everywhere I go. People tune into Mental Health Monday, which is awesome. That's what we want you to do. And if you're not watching live, that's fine. But I know people that go and watch it later in the week, which is great. And to your point about it doesn't feel like Christmas week. My son, my almost 11-year-old, was saying the other day he just wasn't quite in the holiday spirit yet, and we kind of decided maybe it was because there's no snow yet, and it's supposed to be in the 40s this week, which is kind of a little bit higher than we're used to. So you're right, and it sneaks up on us so quickly here with the holidays. But tis the season. It is the 20th of December, and we are facing down Christmas around the corner and several other holidays coming up. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about stress. We're going to talk about being overwhelmed at the holidays. Kristen, I was mentioning to you right before we went on that our big goal this morning was to get the teacher gifts out the door, to make sure our teachers were well thanked appropriately this holiday season. That was a big stress reliever this morning to see that box head off with Julie and the kids. So, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of the same stuff. So I'm excited to talk about this today and give some folks some tools necessary to work through holiday stress. If you're feeling overwhelmed, look to your left and to your right. I guarantee you the same people that are around you also feel overwhelmed. So we're going to address that here today. So before we get started, though, Kristen Boyce, why don't you lead us through a little square breathing exercise?
And for those of you that are feeling stressed, which is probably most of us, this is the number one strategy I want you to use all the way through for 2022. This is really lifelong. If you make a goal of nothing else than to breathe, this is going to be the most life-changing thing you do. And I don't want to oversell it. And I want to make sure that you realize this is helping your nervous system. This is helping your relationships. This is helping you feel better about yourself and managing that overwhelm. So, first thing we're going to do is put our feet on the floor. We're going to take a big inhale through our nose. That's a big important part of the process. So inhaling through your nose, we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, and then slowly release out our mouths for 8. And really letting those shoulders release is an important part of the process. So feet on the floor, pressing into your feet, big deep inhale through your nose and release slowly out your mouth. You can see how long our exhales are. That's exactly what that looks like. Long, slow exhales like you're cooling soup. So big, deep inhale through your nose. Hold and release slowly out your mouth. Let's do a couple shoulder shrugs. You can do this anywhere. I find sometimes I'm holding the steering wheel and I'm doing some shoulder shrugs. We can do a little neck, but I'm doing my breathing. So if I'm shopping, I'm driving, I'm managing children, I'm in my relationships, you will see me breathing often, often, often. It's my number one strategy I teach clients, and it's what I utilize in my own life.
And while you think it may sound so simple, it is something you have to be cognizant about and you have to think about and really be intentional in that breath as well. So it's something, like I said, I use all the time. So appreciate you walking us through that exercise. Quick few ground rules before we dive into the conversation here today. If you have any questions throughout this morning, please feel free to write those in the chat. If you just want to say hi, my good friend Jenna Stewart already did that this morning. Good morning, Jenna. If you want to just say hi, feel free to say hi or offer a comment, or if you have a suggestion or if you have a question, if we don't have an answer for you this morning, we'll get you an answer down the road. We want this to be interactive as much as possible here. So we're just honored that you would join us here this morning. So let's talk about the word overwhelmed a little bit, Kristen, if you don't mind. That is just a common theme right now. Whether you are a parent, whether you are a grandparent, whether you are anybody for that matter. I know there are folks that are working this week all the way up till Christmas. There are some folks, Noblesville schools, for example, I know is in school this week for a few days. So there's maybe some overwhelmed teachers trying to get their to-do list because they're also parents done. Even if you're not in school this week, you're overwhelmed because you have wrapping to do or presents to buy, and you also have kids at home all with you. What a joyous time to spend with them, but also a very, very, very overwhelming time. So I'm not sure that's even a really good starting point, Kristen, but I'm going to let you jump in and kind of lead this conversation around feeling overwhelmed and maybe some tools to get us through that, because it is the most magical time of the year, but probably the most stressful time of the year for so many as well.
For sure. And I think the pandemic adds to it. And so we want to name things instead of skirting around it. It's kind of like that white elephant at a family function, and you all know the white elephant's there, but you don't really say anything. You don't want to upset anybody. You don't want to trigger discord. And what we're doing here at Mental Health Mondays is we're learning to say it's okay to name things. It's okay to name how you feel. That's the first step. And then once you are aware of it and you get curious about it, so curiosity, we tend to shame ourselves. Like, well, look at everybody else. They've got the decor up and they've got all their shopping wrap with pretty bows. And I am a train wreck over here and I have nothing done. And we go into shame on what we don't feel like we're doing good enough. And we get into comparison. And once you become aware of it, we can check our expectations. Are they realistic? Is it really true that, you don't have anything perfect or done? And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is, what's the priority? It's relationships. It's connection. It's the meaning and the purpose behind the holidays. And we get wrapped up in perfectionism. We get wrapped up in these unrealistic expectations about gift giving and what we aren't doing with decor or baking or cooking or wrapping gifts or whatever it is, fill in the blank. And that takes us into shame, and that takes us into depression. It takes us into anxiety. It takes us into shutdown. Maybe we want to numb. Maybe we're drinking a little more. We're eating a little bit more. Maybe we're doing things that we kind of old patterns in order to cope with that stress and overwhelm. So the first step is awareness. The second step is to breathe through that in where you feel it in your body. Breathe through that stress. Start tending to it. Start naming it. And once we can do that, then we're checking our expectations. Are they realistic? Are they not realistic? And then here's what I'm discovering. Here's a little conversation we're going to have that I don't think people are having. A lot of times what's rooted in holiday stress is unmet needs from our past. So for example, if we are putting expectations on this holiday that it's going to be wonderful, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, or whatever we have, it's going to be happy, 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 because we don't want to recreate maybe the Christmas we had or the holiday season we had, or maybe we're trying to make sure that our children have the most magical Christmas, and yet sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes they're going to have their emotions. They're going to have meltdowns. They might not be grateful. They put right all these expectations we have because of our unmet needs, because we want to make it a certain way or have our children feel a certain way or our grandchildren feel a certain way. And when we can take a deep breath and go, you know what? Just my presence is our presence, not present, like as in a gift. Our presence is really what people want and what we're missing right now. People want to be seen. They want to be understood. They want to be loved. They want to feel like they matter and they're important. And that's really what we're missing, is if we have these unmet needs and we feel anxious because things aren't perfect, what we can do is take a deep breath and go, okay, that's not what this is about. They really want me to see them. That's the greatest gift you can offer someone else. Ask them questions. How are you doing? How has this year been for you? How are you feeling? Connect at a deeper level. We don't know how to do that. We're afraid we're going to upset someone. We're afraid we're going to disarm something. And when we can step back and have these more connective conversations and we can breathe through the discomfort, that's what really matters this holiday season.
Yeah, I want to touch on something you mentioned there. I kind of chuckled a few weeks ago. There was this big hubbub about making sure you got your gifts ordered from Amazon ahead of time or whatever, because there's this supply chain issue and your present may be stuck on a barge outside of Long Beach, California. And so we have to order our gifts ahead of time. And I jokingly told a few people, like, well, let's remember that's not, I mean, what's the real reason of the season here? You know what I mean? Like, let's take a step back here. Is that gift really that important? You know, we kind of live in a 24/7 society these days anyways, where a lot of people are getting what they want whenever they want it anyways. So can we talk a little bit about the pressure around gift giving in particular? Because I think that drives a lot of pressure right now. And maybe some tips on, hey, if you didn't get your every neighbor that lives around you the perfect holiday candle, that I'm sure they will just appreciate just as much as you think they're going to appreciate it. How do we kind of manage ourselves around gift giving?
That's a great question. And I'm so glad you brought it up because it's something I struggle with too. It's like, oh, I forgot to get someone a gift, or oh,
Yep.
they're going to think I didn't care about them, or I don't appreciate them, or they don't matter. And what we've had a talk conversation as a family, and what we've decided is personal notes are the greatest gift that you can give someone else. So if you don't have a gift, even just 3 sentences of what they've meant to you in your life, that goes tenfold over. Really sharing what you love about another person, what you appreciate about the other person, that is really that's offering them care, being seen, being loved, and being understood. So if you don't buy any gifts, I'm telling you, I promise you, the greatest gifts, I've even had clients bring in gifts and their notes. They're
Mhm.
they're heartfelt notes, and they have kept them for years. It might have been a teacher that wrote them a note. It might have been a coach, a parent, somebody important in their life that wrote them a note, and they've held on to this note because when they're having a bad day, or they feel like crap, or they feel like no one cares, or they feel like they don't matter, they've got this note and they pull the note out, and that speaks. And I know grandparents, I love the notes. I think if having your kid write a note, a heartfelt note, offering that up as a way to connect. We put so much pressure on ourselves to have the perfect gift or buy all the presents. And what we really want, now children love the gifts. We know this. And what they really want is your presence. What they really want is you to acknowledge them, to be able to acknowledge who they are and not make them somebody they're not.
Yeah.
So this is really the gifts have we've kind of got into the gifts rather than the meaning.
Yeah.
And if we can reframe that, I think we can change the overwhelm and the stress that we feel around the holidays.
Well, I think I love, anyone who knows me too well knows I'm a big fan of the written note. I try to write several per day and mail them out. But my favorite gift was several years ago, actually, a friend of mine named Haley, whose birthday is today, as a matter of fact, gave me a notebook when I got elected mayor of there's probably about 50 different notes in there, from all the way from my first grade teacher at Hinkle Creek Elementary School to my mom, to a whole bunch of people wrote me like supportive, encouraging notes that if I ever am having a bad day, literally have it on my shelf next to my desk. So if something blows up and people are upset about something within our leadership style or whatever it may be, I have a book right there to just open and I kind of read through it and pick a few notes to kind of read through. So I can't stress enough how important the written word can be, which is really, really helpful. And again, like I said, if you have that neighbor that you just didn't quite get the list this year, a quick note to say, hey, thanks for always being so kind to my kids, or stopping and always being and accepting my dogs who never stop barking at you, or something along those lines, I think is a great way and probably 10 times more meaningful than that 10 of popcorn, which love popcorn, amazing, but it's probably more meaningful than even that is. I think that might take the pressure off you a little bit there as well. So I
I
want
love that gift. I
to,
just have to pause for a
yeah,
minute because that just got me. Like I could feel that the tenderness of that gift
yeah,
and the thoughtfulness of having those notes and the meaning it's had in your life.
yep,
Haley just kind of coming up with that and then inviting other people to write notes. There's a gift idea right there for
yeah.
people.
Yeah, it was so awesome. Like I said, there are some low moments in every job. There's some in this job that I just sometimes just open that book and read. Like I said, Mrs. Harper, my first grade teacher, wrote a note in there, and it's just really sweet and kind of gets a smile on my face and helps transition my thoughts a little bit. So write somebody a note this holiday season. Let them know what you mean to them. So, or they mean to you. Let's talk a little bit about expectations around. Somebody mentioned this morning, Lindsay in my office was mentioning one of her children discovered a gift ahead of time, and there was some hubbub about that. And kids oftentimes, I don't know about you at your house, but we have a elf on the shelf who comes every single day, Charlie, who watches our kids and helps making sure that they're good this time of year. And every once in a while I'll catch, especially Vivian will be over whispering something to Charlie that she wants. And I'm always trying to listen to see what new item made on that Christmas list. So there'll be, this weekend at times expectations kids may have about gifts that they give. They may not love what they got. Can you talk a little bit about how to talk with your kids a little bit about that and how to manage your way through that, which can be tricky conversations?
They can be, because we have set up all these expectations around the holidays and Christmas and gift giving. And so having helpful, meaningful conversation about, you may not get everything you want on your list because Santa has a lot of people to provide gifts for. And so there may be some disappointments. How do you feel about that if you don't get the gift that you wanted? Because we don't really talk about that. We only talk about like, oh, I got to get every gift. Oh no, they added something on their list. And so that makes sense because that's how it was set up. That's how it's been set up for years. When we can talk about the giving and the act of giving and the meaning of giving and how important the giving is, that is important for kids. And they are going to have disappointments, and that's okay. As parents, how are we handling that? Are we going, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible parent, I'm a horrible, you're going into shame and fear that you're causing damage to your child or you're making the holidays not wonderful? I think if we can name disappointment, we can process it. Kids move through it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, they're on to the next, and they're playing with a box that something came in rather than the toy. How many times have people said that?
Oh, yeah.
I gave them this thing and now they're playing with the box and I spent all this money on the toy. And so if we can talk about disappointment and normalize it and just acknowledge it, because if they don't get everything they want, that's a good indicator of how to process disappointment. Because a lot of times we don't know what to do with those quote unquote negative feelings. So we drink them, we stuff them, we take a pill, we shop it, all of the things we've learned to do instead of sit with it and acknowledge it and have someone witness it and empathically witness it and go, yeah, I know it's sad. It's disappointing. Yeah, it's okay to let it out.
And isn't a lot of those emotions, especially disappointment and others, kind of like exercise in the fact that you have to continue to condition yourself to manage through it? That's kind of what you're saying here, correct?
Yeah, to learn that there are going to be disappointments in life and you can handle it and you can get through it and you can do hard things, because a lot of times we've rescued people, our children in particular, from hard things instead of saying, yeah, I know it's disappointing and you didn't get everything you wanted. And what does that feel like? Well, yeah. I mean, they can process what that is. And we don't have to feel threatened by that. We don't have to go into shame and feel less than because they're disappointed and not getting what they wanted, or whatever, insert disappointment, whatever that looks like. Because we spend a lot of time trying not to disappoint people. We try to spend a lot of our energy trying to make someone happy. And here's the truth. This is a hard truth. You can't. You're powerless over making someone happy. You are powerless over their emotions. I can witness them and walk alongside them and offer empathy, but I can't make somebody happy. And how many times do we feel responsible for other people's feelings and trying to keep the peace or trying to make them feel okay? And we spend a lot of our wheels and we're powerless over that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're powerless over making our kids happy. We think we have all that power. Instead, witnessing, walking alongside, naming it, processing it is exactly what they need to equip them for a lot of disappointment and hard in their lives, instead of rescuing, trying to fix, rescue, or save them from it. And the holidays can spur a lot of that on. Like, we want this to have zero disappointments. And the reality is that's not going to be the case, because there's going to be disappointments.
Well, I think that's, I was actually talking with somebody several months ago. One of the most impactful things that has been said to me in 2021 was somebody reminding me, I think I already knew it, but I need to remind you that I am not in control of someone else's happiness. And that, for some reason, that has stuck with me on several fronts. Because you're right, I'm a fixer, I'm a doer. I want to, swoop in, save, whatnot. That, for some reason. So if you need to hear that today, you're not in control of someone else's. Now, I'm sure, Kristen, you can talk to that. We aid their happiness, we're supportive of their feelings, we're, et cetera. But you cannot control someone else's happiness.
You cannot control someone's happiness, their sadness,
Yeah.
their anger, their any emotion
Yeah.
about how they feel. You can witness
Yeah.
empathically and walk alongside. So I always tell people, whose lane are you in? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're so focused on making this person happy, and what do they think of you? And are they going to reject you? Are they going to abandon you? Are they not going to like you? Oh, they're upset with you. Oh, you don't want to hurt them, which is all well and good until you spend all your energy trying to get this person to see the light or get them to be happy when you're powerless over that. You jumped lanes. And so when you can ask yourself, am I walking alongside someone and offering empathy and compassion, or am I trying to rescue them and help them and save them? You've jumped lanes. You're no longer in your own lane. And that is an important ask yourself, am I walking alongside, or am I trying to rescue and make them feel happy or better, or insert whatever you want them to feel? That, and oftentimes as children, it's important to note that we spent a lot of time trying to please our parents or please our teachers or please our coaches or insert whoever. Okay. And we work really hard because that felt good. Like if they're giving us affirmation or they're giving us acknowledgement, and then it's maladaptive in adulthood because we learn, oh yeah, I cannot be in charge of their emotions because you will be sucked dry energetically.
Yeah. I just think that's just such an important this time of year, especially to just kind of let that sink in a little bit. Parents, grandparents, friends, anybody else, let that sink in and know that you cannot control those emotions. So you can come alongside those emotions and let them breathe and work through them. So I think that's just incredibly important. So thank you for I know I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there with that conversation, but it is an important one this time of year when the expectations game and whatnot. So lastly, here, while we have about 10 minutes left here, I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, there may be a lot of holiday gatherings this weekend, next week, next couple of weeks. You're going to spend a lot of time with family, extended family. You may be at home with your adoring little kids, which are cute for the first day or so. And then all of a sudden you realize you have 17 more days of this left. And there's just some tough maybe situations coming up for you. How do we manage ourselves through that? I know we touched on it a few weeks ago, but how do we manage kind of that stress around holiday gatherings this year?
Yeah, so let's first acknowledge that it's okay if you feel overwhelmed going into the holidays and with the family, with the dynamics. So it's not uncommon. That's my dog crying in the background.
I hear.
Poor little thing. It's not uncommon for you to feel triggered. And what do I mean by triggered? You have an emotional response based on what someone says, does. It could be a place that you're in. And so just give yourself some grace as you are navigating those triggers and being aware of them. Here's the one thing we don't want to do. Cry like the dog.
Yeah.
No, it's okay to let it out. So here's the one thing we don't want to do is get highly reactive as a result of that trigger. So one of the most important things that I teach families, I do a lot of family therapy and couples, is one, you have to take radical ownership for your own reactions and responses. So if you get triggered, your body will tell you immediately. And the first thing you're going to do is take a deep breath. You might need to leave and go or walk around the house. You might need to go in the other room. You might need to take 5 deep breaths away from the family and then regroup. So we don't want to get into debates on being right or wrong because you're not going to change someone else's mind. This is the other thing. You're not going to change someone else's mind. My suggestion for this is take a deep breath and say, I'd rather be in connection than let's put a pin in that. I'd rather be in connection than get all heated up over this topic when we know we're not going to change each other's minds. That's the reality. And if we can acknowledge the reality, we're not going to change each other's minds. And let's put a pin in that and let's move on to something that we can connect on. That's why I like doing What Are You Grateful For? I know we talked about that at Thanksgiving. I really like that. Your favorite holiday memory. That's also a good one to bring up. This holiday season isn't particularly stressful. Okay. This last 2 years, have exacerbated so much anxiety and stress. And so the first thing we have to do is acknowledge that this has been hard. And when we can acknowledge that for ourselves and for other people and say, this has been hard. Has this been hard for you? And sometimes just letting them talk about how hard it's been is helpful. Sometimes it's not helpful, and you're not going to ask that questions. You're going to move towards the what are you grateful for question. Here's the truth of the matter. We have been through this a mental health crisis. And we have been in isolation at times. We feel lonelier than we ever have in history. And so sometimes what you're seeing is triggers from the past that have oftentimes that have nothing to do with you. So if you're in the family dynamic and someone's getting heated, the first thing you're going to do is just breathe. And you might even say, let's all take a couple deep breaths. Sometimes that doesn't go well and you can't be responsible for that. Sometimes you need an exit strategy. I tell people it's okay to have an exit strategy where you say, you know what, this has been really fun. This is getting too heated. We're going to put a pin in this and we're going to take a break, and maybe we can regroup on doing this another day. And this seems extreme for people, and sometimes it's not in a safe and healthy environment to continue when you need to take a break. And so that's my 2 cents is self-regulation. Secondly is acknowledge the hard that we've been under. And third is manage those expectations, because if we can just accept that this is not going to look like how we hoped it would look like, then we can grieve through that and really process those emotions that come along with that.
Well, and that's I always think about going into holiday time, and I love my in-laws. I love traveling. They're wonderful people. But if you go into a holiday setting and maybe there's that brother-in-law that you debate all the time on something, and I think it's key to just know that you're not going to win the battle. You're not going to change a mind this holiday season. So pick your battles wisely and think about your conversation with them appropriately, and what's that going to make you feel like, because you're ultimately the one in control of it. You're not going to change them. So what is that conversation going to make you feel like this holiday season? So pick and choose your conversations based on that perspective. So Kristen, I want to end, this is our last show of this year of 2021. So I thought I would challenge you. Is there one thing in particular in 2021 that stands out as maybe a personal lesson learned for you that you've taken away from this year?
Yeah, I would say this has been, and I don't mean to be a downer, but we're in a mental health crisis, and I've been doing this 20 years, and it's probably, it only will continue to be a fallout. And so one of the things that I think is most important is radical self-care. And we have guilt about investing in ourselves or doing something for ourselves or taking care of ourselves. It is imperative that you are tending and caring for yourself, because you cannot care for anyone else until we are taking care of ourselves. So if you've put off taking care of yourself, if you're always the one that's the caretaker, it's so important to do self-care. That is the lesson of 2021, and moving forward, I think that's going to follow us for decades to come. How about you?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of shared a few minutes ago about not being in control of somebody else's happiness. That was one that just stuck with me, and that is kind of cheating by using that example. So I'll actually give you a specific example in my life every day. My wife Julie Jensen we deal with stress very differently. When she's overwhelmed or stressed out, she loves to clean. Incredibly healthy way to deal with stress, by the way. Me as the people pleaser in our relationship, always, I could tell when she was worked up, all of a sudden pillows are getting fluffed at ridiculous times of the day. I'm like, why are you fluffing that pillow? We're going to have one of our children slobber on it or poop on it or something. But I used to that would give me some heightened anxiety when she would do that. And so I'd find myself like grabbing some dust cloth and doing something just to pretend like I'm actually engaging in the conversation and being a part of it, because I felt bad that she was cleaning. So I was trying to help her clean and control. I have learned now that is her mechanism for relieving that stress. And so I don't need to be a part of that. I don't need to fix that situation when it's going on. I just need to probably remove myself and go let her work through that on her own, because that's her own way of processing, and get out of the way. And then ultimately she is a less stressed, because that's just her way of outletting. So just an example in the Jensen household of how we kind of work through our languages and how we how we deal with our stressful times. And again, it's not my duty to fix that stressful time. It's my duty to come alongside and allow her to work through that stressful time the most appropriate way.
And you're sitting in your discomfort, like before you were like, I gotta
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
because you felt responsible to make
Yes.
it better. And now
Yeah.
you're like, no, I don't need to be
No,
responsible for that.
no, go for it. Enjoy that. Enjoy that junk drawer that you're going to clean for the third time this week. But hey, whatever works, it's great.
Hey,
So,
if that works for you.
yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's a
So
great example.
there's a good example. Hopefully somebody can take it and use it a little bit there too. So, hey, as we wrap up 2021, as we always do, Kristen, if somebody's in crisis right now, where do they turn?
1-800-273-TALK. Please, please, please reach out for help. Do not try to do it alone. You matter, you're important, and you're enough. And shame wants to tell you a different story. You can text 741-741. There's also Prevail here, Community North, St. Vincent Stress Center here in the Indianapolis area. Please do not walk this alone. I know we've tried to do so many things alone in our life. And the 1-800-273-TALK, they're available 24 hours a day, and you can text 741-741 at any time. Don't be afraid to reach out. I know that shame wants to tell you don't do it. Lean into that discomfort and do it anyways.
That's wonderful. Well, Kristen Boyce, I am incredibly thankful for you. As always, I'm thankful for everyone who takes time to listen and learn and share with everybody. Have a safe and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Remember, you are not in charge of everyone else's emotions. You're only in charge of your own. So also, we will, in 2 weeks, will be right after New Year's, so we will be taking that Monday off. So join us in 4 weeks back here for Mental Health Monday as we kick off 2022 with some new guests and new topics and new ideas as we continue this conversation. So thank you, Kristen Boyce. You're the best.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.